I have a nightmare neighbor. Her name is Karen, and no, that's not her made-up name. She's actually named Karen. Well, she went way too far and is blaming my son for vandalism. She even went as far as to stage the scene to make it look like that he really was the one who did it. But guys, I got it all on camera, and I can't wait to tell the police. My neighbor destroyed my car after police dismissed her claim that I assaulted her. One of the most important things to wish for, that we rarely forget, is good neighbors. Pray for them and wish for them, but having a good neighbor is very underrated. I might as well be living next to a psychopath at this point, because what I have to endure because of my neighbor is more than enough to say so. So, guys, my husband and I have been married for 2 decades, and we have lived in the same house since we got married. We have 3 children, all boys, and our area is one of the most peaceful places I've ever seen. And 14 years ago, that changed. Karen moved in. You could say a name that's never represented anyone as well as it does for her. She's a real one, a real Karen. I mean, come on. The day she moved in, it was all the beginning of nagging and unease for me and my family. Usually, when anyone moves into the neighborhood, you welcome them with a pie, a cake, a basket of bread or a cheese or a bottle of wine or something along the lines of, "Welcome to the neighborhood." And as usual, it was time for something like that when Karen moved in. I baked a pie, and my husband and I went over to welcome our new neighbor at her home. The first thing Kevin and I said, we heard a very rude person asking us who was at the door. When she finally opened up the door, it did not take long for me to know that we had just got a troublemaker. We handed over the pie to Karen and introduced ourselves. Karen looked at us and did not bother to invite us in. We asked if we could come inside, and she just declined. According to her, she was still unpacking and she could not handle visitors at the moment. The tone suggested otherwise, and my husband and I left and told her that we hoped she enjoyed living inside of our neighborhood. Well, guys, that was 14 long years ago. And over the years, it seemed like she's been the only one having a good time. Karen made being her neighbor unbearable for us. The worst experience we had with Karen was when my first son Alex turned 5. Karen had been our neighbor for almost a year, and the biggest complaint that she had before then was how our tree was growing into her yard and how it needed to be trimmed. I understood that no one would want the leaves falling into their yard, so we apologized. My son's birthday was nothing like that. See, we had planned a dinosaur-themed party for Alex in the backyard because he was obsessed with them at the time. He requested a volcano, and my husband, being the project guy that he is, bought all of the ketchup and baking soda that he could to make a big volcano for Alex. You know, the party was going fine, and my son was having the time of his life. His father told him that he had one last surprise for him and activated the volcano. Alex was so happy that he almost was screaming his lungs out. Well, that's when Karen barged in. We had invited her, but she told us that there was nothing for her at the birthday party for a 5-year-old. We turned to see what was going on, and Karen was there, with a very angry expression that made me realize something was going on. Kevin asked her what was going on, and she started walking really fast towards us. Before we could do anything, Karen grabbed my son and started shaking him so hard that he started to cry. Karen was surprisingly strong, and taking my son back from her was hard, and in my fear and anger, I wasn't sure why Karen was doing what she did, but I knew I had to get her out of my house. Kevin dragged her out and asked her what she was doing, and Karen yelled at my husband and said that we were making noise and that she was tired of the noise. But it was my son's birthday. So the loudest music was barely enough to qualify for noise pollution. Who wanted to blow my son's eardrums out? I mean, I asked her how that translated to shaking my son. She said that he was the reason for all this, and guys, I was absolutely disgusted. I told her to stay the heck away from us. She spat in my face and told me to keep my dirty son in check. Guys, he's 5 years old. That was merely the beginning of everything, and as my other children came along and grew up, Karen continued to be a horrible neighbor. She would seize my children's bicycles and only give them back with parts missing. One time, Alex and John were playing football when they threw it into her yard. When they knocked to ask for it, she stood in front of them and made them watch as she stuck a knife in the ball and deflated it. Now, It's gotten out of hand, and she complains about everything. She complains about the trash bin and says that it's smelly. She comes into our yard a lot without permission. Kevin has constantly said that we should file a restraining order against her. I said no, I didn't want that many issues to escalate. Our neighborhood is small, and I didn't want gossip to start flying around. Well, that didn't stop her. Her unsolicited opinion was already unbearable until recently. She came and started saying our lawn was disfiguring the scenery and that we had to find a way to make it greener. Alex, who is now 18, told her to stop looking in our yard, so she wanted to see bad scenery and she lost it. Once again, Karen grabbed my son and attempted to drag him to God knows where. Alex snatched his hand away and told her to get out of our yard. She started screaming and shouting, and Alex pushed her. I ran outside and asked what's going on. She didn't say anything to me and started swearing as she walked away. She called my son's toots and said that they were failures, and I became irritated and walked fast enough to catch up to her before she left the yard. I warned her to stop harassing my sons because they were becoming distressed with her behavior. Her constant insults were just far too much, and my youngest son, who's just 5 years old, is scared of playing outside because of her. The next thing I knew, Karen was on the floor, rolling and screaming, accusing me of hitting her. I was surprised at this behavior and told her I did nothing and my sons were there to see I wasn't close enough to do anything. I walked away, leaving her there because I was too angry to even be nice at that point. I thought that was the end of it until later that night when we heard a knock at the door. The police were there with Karen, and the story she told was that I assaulted her. I immediately told the officers that she's a liar and told them that I have proof. I told them everything that happened so that Karen could come into our yard. Kevin showed them the camera footage and the police officers confirmed that we were not lying. They apologized for disturbing us and warned Karen about raising false alarms and falsely accusing people. They told her that they could actually arrest her, because she did go ahead to trespass. But I told them no, we weren't going to be pressing charges. I should have let them. Karen wasted no time in telling us how disappointed she was about being our neighbor. The stress of the whole situation made my husband and I just ignore her, to be honest. So, the next morning is why I wrote this whole story. We were getting ready to leave home when John shouted for Kevin to come inside. The tone of his voice made me suspect that something was wrong, so I went outside too. To our shock, we found out that all of our tires have been slashed. Our car could not be used since we had no tires. I was already panicking trying to figure out why this happened, until I remembered that we had a dash camera. So I quickly checked it and nothing could describe how I felt when I saw Karen with a knife directly in front of the vehicle. She was the one who slashed the tires, and Kevin went inside to check the security footage from the night before, but as he was going inside, he noticed that the camera was indeed broken. And, he went inside to go ahead and check the footage, and the last thing it showed was Karen throwing rocks at the lens. She slashed my tires and still destroyed the cameras too. Anyways, that's why I'm here, guys. I want to get back to Karen. I'm just really angry that Karen did this after she called the police on us for a lie. Now she decided to slow my family and me down because things did not go her way. We have proof to have her arrested, but it's not enough for me. What do you guys think that we should do? Update number 1. Hello everyone, the comments here have been conflicting and it's honestly been a day since I told you all what's going on. I would have followed a few of the suggestions some of you provided if Karen had not done what she did yesterday. I called the neighborhood mechanics to fix the tires after my husband and children left home. I told my employees that I would be absent from work because I had to stay and supervise the fixing. The mechanic has been working in the neighborhood longer than we've lived there. While he was asking my questions about the car, I told him who had done it. He sighed and told me that he was sorry that I had to spend money fixing what I didn't destroy. As it turns out, he knew a lot more than we did about Karen. Before Kevin and I bought the house, the real owner of the house Karen was living in moved to a bigger place. He decided to set the house up for rent after he moved out, and Karen became the first tenant. I was surprised to find out that Karen had a landlord. Anyone who saw her and heard how she talked about the house would think that she owned it. One time she said she got the house after a lot of hard work. I'm realizing that means finding it. I told the mechanic to give me the contract, and I need to see the contact of the landlord, and called him after the mechanic left. We talked for a while. I told him about everything that's been going on, and he was very, very apologetic and said that he was going to talk to her, so she would not bring his property value down. A few hours later, I'd say around 3 p.m., the landlord calls me back and told me that he had talked to Karen. She told him that I assaulted her and pushed her, but the landlord already knew the truth about the situation at hand. He warned her not to disturb us anymore, or there was going to be dire consequences. I thanked him, and I hoped that would be the end of the whole Karen situation. Later, yesterday evening, we were sitting to have dinner when we heard a knock at the door. It was the police again. This was the second time in a week that the police were showing up, and I assumed that they wanted to tell us that they had new information. We were surprised when they asked if Alex was around, and I asked them, well, what's going on? They said that Alex was being arrested for vandalism. I wondered how that happened. I can't say I was surprised to find Karen standing in front of our yard. The police said Karen told them that Alex painted graffiti on her fence. How was he supposed to do that when he didn't even enter her home? Alex denied doing anything of the same, and Karen insisted that she had evidence. She showed us the paint on her walls and told us that Alex had thrown the paint cans in our yard. Alex was already scared and kept saying that he did nothing. However, since Karen said that she had proof, we had no choice but to let the police search our backyard. To my shock, paint cans scattered everywhere. Alex insisted that he didn't do anything, but there was nothing that we could do. There was no way to tell them that Alex didn't do anything wrong. We ended up going to the police station that night, and my son was arrested because of Karen, and they would not let him go till Monday morning. Guys, he's 18 years of age, and he's already just locked up for a crime he didn't even commit? Yeah, I'm fed up. My son is completely innocent. Updates number 2. 3 weeks is a long time when you have become the talk of the town. Thank you for all your encouragement, and Alex is doing fine right now. I ended the last update by telling you how Alex was arrested and taken to the police station. We ended up going the next day, and Alex was released with 2 weeks of mandatory community service. Despite the fact that we insisted that Alex was innocent and did nothing wrong, the sheriff said it was better that Alex did community service because it was better that way. So, according to him, it would get Karen off her back, and he said he was going to keep investigating, especially since Karen had a habit of lying and accusing my family and me of doing things that we would never even do. Alex would have been left alone if we had an alibi for him. However, the only thing we could tell them was that Alex had been at home all day. The one thing that could have stopped Alex from getting arrested was if we had footage of what had happened, but unfortunately, we never put cameras in the backyard because we didn't feel that we needed to. Should have. Karen had thrown the paint cans in our backyard because she probably knew this, and the sheriff said that they were going to continue investigating the matter, mostly because he knew Alex was suspicious of what Karen had to say. Like that wasn't enough, Karen said the only reason she would not press charges was if Alex came to work in her yard every day for a week. Well, I was angry and told her there's no way that she could have done that. She smirked and said that I should have stopped my tout of a son from destroying her property. Karen didn't know that I already knew that she wasn't the owner of the house that she was living in. It didn't take long for the whole story to spread around. When Kevin and I went grocery shopping, the cashier asked us how we were dealing with Alex getting arrested. About 5 other people asked us the same question within 10 minutes. We ended up leaving without getting everything on our list even. It wasn't easier at home because Alex was furious and said he was moving out after his community service was over. It was not worth it to stay at home if he was being framed for what he didn't do. I felt bad seeing my son this way and not being able to do much about it. I comforted him and asked him to talk to me. Karen had made him do everything possible in the name of community service. She went ahead to make him sweep these dead leaves off her lawn and told him to take the trash all the way to the garbage collector. Alex told me that she made him scrub her side of the fence until it was squeaking clean. I was furious and just apologized to Alex for not being able to do anything about it. Well, yesterday, as I was getting back from work, Kevin called me and said that he had a plan to make sure that Karen owned up to what she did. I didn't let him finish before I told him. I told him exactly that I was already making sure that Karen experienced way worse than that. I thought that having the landlord warn her was going to be enough, but oh boy, I was wrong. And it just means that I'm going to look for another way to make Karen pay. I'll update you guys when something happens. Update number 3. Hey, everyone. Well, I have been offline because I've been trying to help my family recover from everything that Karen has done to us. It's been not so easy. So for the past 2 weeks, we've been the subject of every gathering that's been going on in the neighborhood. It's been hard with everyone trying to get information from us about all that's been going down, and somebody's been supplying them with the wrong information. See, Karen had told the people who worked at the dinner in our neighborhood that Alex was a drug addict and often forgot what he was doing. She also told them that the day she caught Alex spray painting on her walls, he pushed her and jumped over the fence to make a break for it. I was angry, but there was nothing that I could even do about it. Alex begged me not to pick fights with anyone and tried his best to be fine about it. It's been 2 weeks since then, but Karen's still spreading lies about my family. At some point, I suggested that my children should go and spend time with their grandparents. Kevin said they should come over instead to distract Alex and his siblings from everything that's been going on. To welcome my and Kevin's parents, we decided to hold a family dinner. The dining room in the house wasn't big enough to hold all of us comfortably, so we moved into the backyard. Since we had more space, we decided to invite more family over. We'd barely started dinner and chatting with Karen suddenly started yelling from her window that we should stop disturbing her. I asked her what she meant and why she was talking to us, and she said we were disturbing her peace. My sister laughs and called her a Karen because we weren't even loud, and besides, we were not going to let her ruin the family night, so we ignored her. Karen pulled her head back inside, and we thought that was the end of it. But Jaden wanted to show some of his cousins his ball, but then he remembered he left it in the yard. I told John to go fetch it, and just as he was walking towards the backyard gate, it was flung open, and Karen storms in screaming so loudly that we could not hear anything that she was even saying. Guys, she pushed John to the floor, and every other person was shocked that we did not know what to do at first. The next thing we knew, Karen was lifting the flower pots on the patio and throwing them around. All of us started running away from her. My sister and her husband quickly grabbed the children, they told the rest of them to get inside. We couldn't get close to Karen since she was throwing an absolute tantrum. When Kevin rushed to stop her, she threw sand in his face like a sand attack. That's when his brother and I managed to grab her from behind. They had gone around the house and locked the gate to the backyard, and she started shouting that we kidnapped her. But we ignored her, and my sister came out and said the police were already on their way. So the police came, and Karen was told that she was under arrest. She yelled that she didn't do anything wrong, and we kidnapped her until Alex came out and said that he recorded the whole event. Well, Karen kept quiet and stopped talking at that point. The police asked her why the heck would she even attack us for absolutely no reason. She refused to say anything, and the police took her away. We took Kevin to the hospital because the sand got into his eyes and he hadn't gotten them to clean it out. The rest of the family cleaned up the yard and waited for us to return. My sisters said that we had to do something about her living next to us, and Kevin insisted that we finally get this restraining order. I told him that it wasn't enough and I had a better plan. I called the landlord of Karen's house and informed them of everything that had happened. I told him I was going to the police station to give my side of the incident, and he agreed to meet there and chit-chat. I was going to make sure that Karen was evicted from the house and absolutely sued. So I'm going to the police station tomorrow, and I'll let you know everything that happens. Update number 4. Final update, please subscribe to the channel. So this update's finally with some good news because Karen will be out of our lives, for good. I have not said anything in 2 weeks because a lot's been going on. I've told you how she was arrested for attacking my family. Well, guys, she was actually fined for invasion of privacy and was required to pay up to $3,000. How she did that is none of my business because that was the court's fine. I also told you how I called the landlord and asked to talk to him. Well, I told him I wanted Karen absolutely evicted. She was harmful to us and she was causing too many problems. He told me that he needed tangible reasoning to evict her, so he decided to inspect the home when Karen left the station. After Karen was bailed out, the landlord demanded inspection and found that most of the rooms of the house were disfigured beyond repair. To solve the damage, the entire place would have to be renovated. Karen lived alone, and somehow the house looked like more people just lived there. The landlord told her that he was evicting her, and told her she had 1 month to move out, and Karen refused and said she wasn't going to leave. However, the landlord said that he had the right to evict her since she violated their agreement, and Karen started saying that she would sue the landlord for emotional distress when he told her that he had a deal for her. According to him, he would let Karen stay in the house if she told him the truth about all that's been going on. She agreed after she could not convince the landlord not to invite me to the meeting. Kevin and I went with the landlord a few days later, and Karen started talking, and she said that she was harassed by my husband and I because we knew that she lived alone. The landlord was angry because he knew that she was lying. He quickly told her not to lie because he had proof that she had slashed the tires of our car. Karen was visibly shaken, and she started confessing to everything that she did. She told us how she slashed our tires after she had watched a video on how to do it on YouTube. She said that she broke the camera after we used it to prove that I did not push her the first time she called the police on us. Kevin and I were so angry that it showed in our behavior. Meanwhile, Karen was very apologetic and recounted everything that she did with a tone of pride. I was irritated and asked her why she did all of this to us, and she claimed that she was just jealous of what we had. Jealous of what we had? I was shocked. I walked away after I told her she was leaving the house regardless. She suddenly stood up and started shouting about how I had no right to say that to her. I told her I did, and the landlord and I had planned this before the meeting happened. The landlord was still going to evict Karen, and I wanted to get back at her. So I told the landlord to pretend to make a deal with her. I'd been recording throughout the meeting on my Apple Watch. I told her she had no choice but to leave after all that she's done to us. To the devastation and horror of Karen's face, it made me know that I had gotten back at her in the best way possible. The landlord apologized for everything that happened and left. I got to the driveway before I called the police on Karen again. I showed them every bit of evidence, every bit of proof, and she was arrested again. I didn't stop there because I sued her for all the things that she did to us. She has been sued by my family for emotional distress. She's been sued for property damage, vandalism, defamation of character. Oh boy. I have no way to describe the look of defeat that Karen had on her face. I knew that I won. Kevin and I are considering buying the house from the landlord. We've not decided what to do with it yet, but we know that it'll be something that removes the possibility of a crazy neighbor in the future. I believe I did the right thing for myself and my family. Well, that would teach Karen a lesson.